Whether it's the depths of the rainforest, the vast expanse of the desert, or the unsparing terrain of mountain ranges, there are few things more primally and existentially scary than the wilderness. And horror filmmakers have known this since time immemorial, using the emptiness of nature as an excellent stand-in for whatever creepy metaphorical threat looms large over society. Also because it rightly just scares the crap out of viewers. The wilderness is home to all manner of mountain men and monsters, hammering home the fear that we have lost touch with nature and one day it'll want to claim us back. These are the films far from the edges of civilization that realise Mother Nature as a woman scorned. I am the poisonous Ash from WhatCulture Horror, and these are the 10 best wilderness horror movies. 10. Wilderness. Disliked by critics upon release, but since rediscovered as a cult classic, Wilderness is an underrated British horror. A gritty indie which sees some juvenile delinquents face all sorts of horrors in the titular wilderness. They arrive there after being sent to atone for driving a fellow juvie inmate to suicide via bullying. The group are gruesomely offed one by one in a tense and terrifying horror that makes full use of its unsettling setting, and benefits from a well-rounded turn by then rising star Toby Kebbell as the film's troubled anti-hero. Taking inspiration from a whole bunch of excellent British horrors that tap into the dark side of the countryside, it's only fair for a movie with this title as its title to make this list, surely. 9. Animal. Released in 2014 and starring a rogues gallery of former child stars, yes, that is 2003's Peter Pan you noticed amongst the lineup. Animal is a simple, straightforward, and terrifying creature feature which uses the beautiful North American wilderness as its evocative setting. This monster movie makes incredible use of its remote and stunning deep forest scenery in the film's early scenes, eschewing the claustrophobic, rotting woods of The Evil Dead and its imitators in favour of a lush, verdant landscape of gorgeous greenery. Gorgeous greenery wherein there are all manner of monsters though, remember. The fact that it's a creature feature doesn't detract from the foreboding emptiness of its setting and the tangible distance from civilization. Much in the same way the descent strands its victims below ground, here our heroes are in the same situation in the open expanses, but nothing is there to hear their cries. Or worse, the only things that can hear said cries are more of the monsters hunting them. 8. The Hills Have Eyes. Wes Craven's 1977 horror set the blueprint for wilderness horrors to follow by combining the most disturbing elements of its predecessors into one nightmarish, politically charged slice of bleak 70s horror. So Deliverance had monstrous men far from civilization assaulting and attacking our heroes. This one has an entire family of them scavenging through a nuclear wasteland and eating unfortunate tourists for sustenance. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre already had an entire family of cannibalistic backwoods monsters. This film pits them against a clean-cut, all-American family with a baby and a dog in tow instead of some burnout college kids. The stakes are raised immeasurably when it's a nuclear family under attack in this gruesome siege horror. And the we're not so different parallels are far more obvious and evocative than in Craven's earlier shocker, The Last House on the Left. After all, this is the story of a small American family just trying to survive by any means possible, from either perspective. 7. Motel Hell. 1980s underrated horror comedy Motel Hell reimagines the wilderness horror as a goofy, campy spectacle which offers a harsh and hilariously unsparing satire of America's middle class. The film remains wildly underrated as a charming, macabre horror comedy remix, and it is a must-watch for fans of the subgenre. Here, the villains are the cheery proprietors of the titular establishment, a couple who turn the unfortunate guests into awarded artisan sausages. But where the likes of Leatherface and co. were driven to cannibalism by extreme poverty and have seen their once dignified lives torn apart by industry rendering their work irrelevant, here the villains are perfectly well off and have set up this cannibalistic business for the sake of money-making enterprise. Brimming with sharp, dark wit, this one is a great satire of amoral entrepreneurs as well as a stellar wilderness horror. 6. Wrong Turn. Post-2000, the turn of the millennium meant that the reliable 30-year nostalgia cycle was ready for the gritty brutality of 70s horror classics. Ironic wit and meta-horror was out, savage and unsparingly cynical survival films were in. Enter Wrong Turn, a franchise so successful it managed to produce 5 sequels in short order, reigniting public interest in the wilderness horror subgenre with its simple teens versus cannibals plot. Less viscerally brutal and more crowd-pleasing, this one features some superb kills, a tense and scary plot, and fantastic acting from a whole group of great actors, all of whom give over-the-top material real human weight and garner some real scares from a potentially cheesy premise. 5. Long Weekend. While something like Wolf Creek could easily get a mention here instead, I want to throw up an older classic that takes on all the horrors of the Australian wilderness and puts them front and centre for viewers to wrangle with. Both a 70s classic and an okay 2008 remake, Long Weekend is the wilderness movie at its most pure, detailing a couple that head out for an isolated camping trip only to not respect the area they settle down in for the weekend. And oh, nature takes notice. Slowly ramping up in psychological tension as well as in visual horror, Long Weekend becomes almost unbearable to watch. A revenge movie for the outdoors itself, as much as a moral lesson in respecting the world we find ourselves living in. It has a special brand of ecological horror, and whilst there are plenty of other entries on this list that look at the people who inhabit the far reaches of the world rather than the places totally lacking a population, the latter proves to be deeply, primarily disturbing in a much different way, as this movie shows. 4. Deliverance. Far from the campy kills of Wrong Turn, John Boorman's Deliverance is a film so unsparingly realistic and unsettling that it is often not even considered a horror. Call it what you like, though it's hard to imagine finding at least one sequence anything other than terrifying, this survival film is one of the most upsetting and intense endurance tests in the subgenre's history. Deliverance remains realistic and horrific decades later in its simple story of 4 businessmen who raft upriver, only to run afoul of monstrous hillbillies and become embroiled in a battle for survival. Unbearably tense, the film's simple plot benefits from incredible stunt work undertaken by the cast themselves, as well as all-time great chemistry between the stoic Burt Reynolds, the nebbish Jon Voight, and a career-best Ned Beatty as their traumatized friend. This one, like Walter Hill's later Southern Comfort, is strong stuff that won't sit well with all viewers. But those willing to brave its steps will be rewarded with a sharp and brutal commentary on human nature and the state of civilization. 3. The Hills Run Red. The Hills Run Red is easily the most underrated film on this list, as evidenced by the fact that most might not have even heard of it. It's a shame, as the film's slasher story outdoes the same year's more predictable hits such as Friday the 13th and My Bloody Valentine. Then again, this one is neither a remake nor full of gory 3D gimmickry, so maybe it never stood a fighting chance with audiences of the time. The Hills Run Red is full of sharp commentary on the state of horror filmmaking. Disturbing and clever in equal measure, this slasher gives the wilderness horror subgenre a meta remix, as its heroes run afoul of a baby mass killer while seeking out a copy of the possibly mythical scariest film to ever exist. One guess what the title of said film is? 2. The Ritual. One half a film on something sinister lurking in the woods, and another half a film on something very sinister lurking in the woods, The Ritual has rightly become a cult classic in its own right since releasing in 2017. If any one movie is going to be enough to teach you to stick to the path and not go barreling through shortcuts you aren't certain of, especially when in the desolate ranges of an unknown Swedish forest, let The Ritual be it. Creepy cabins in the woods, a stalking, mysterious presence, and a whole crazy finale that does justice to the strange secrets swirling around the edges of this movie go a long way to making something deeply scary for both its setting and its story. The wilderness feels terrifying for being older than anything or one we know, and The Ritual doubles down on that to excellent effect. 1. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You already know who it is. Even if it is a predictable pick, the film's inventive, invasively close-up camera work, its expert use of suspense to hide almost every gory moment, and its unrelenting speed and constant noise make the atmosphere pervasively terrifying. A roller coaster which triggers bone-deep terror in the viewer. The Texan vistas are appropriately vast and empty, the sunshine is tangibly overheated, and the cast seem genuinely exhausted by their ordeal. Many later wilderness horrors may boast more complex plots, themes, backstories, and monsters, but none have the raw power of this unmissable genre classic. And that's our list. What other outdoorsy types belong on this list? Share your thoughts in the comment section below. I've been Ash over on social media @AshMillman, and this has been WhatCulture. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and come back again soon for some more spine-tingling horror content. Thanks for watching.